The 1970s produced music that wasn't trying to change the world. It was just trying to make people laugh, and somehow those goofy studio experiments still hold up better than plenty of what gets released today. So today, we're counting down 10 joke songs from 1970s that still sound better than modern music. Number 10, Wolf Creek Pass by C.W. McCall. Released in 1974 as the title track from his debut album, this song was performed by C.W. McCall, a stage name used by advertising executive William Dale Fries Jr., who had already found regional fame through a series of bread commercials before launching a full recording career. The song told the true story, based on an account Fries heard directly from real truckers, of two drivers who lost their brakes hauling a load of chickens down a treacherous stretch of Colorado's Wolf Creek Pass. It reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot Country chart and crossed over to number 40 on the pop chart, proving that a spoken-word trucking story with a genuinely comedic edge could find a national audience well beyond its rural subject matter. Fries co-wrote and produced the track with composer Chip Davis, who would later go on to found the group Mannheim Steamroller. The song's success helped set the stage for Fries' far bigger hit the following year, Convoy, which built on the same trucking culture humor that first appeared here. Decades later, Wolf Creek Pass remains a favorite among fans of spoken-word country storytelling, admired for packing a complete, vivid, comedic story into just a few minutes of music. The song's structure, built entirely around vivid, escalating imagery of the runaway truck barreling downhill, gave listeners a genuinely thrilling narrative arc despite the comedic tone, a combination Fries would continue refining throughout the rest of his brief but memorable recording career. Fries later left the music industry behind almost entirely, eventually settling in Ouray, Colorado, where he served as the town's mayor for 6 years starting in 1986, a quiet second act far removed from his brief run of national radio fame. The song's title referred to a genuinely treacherous stretch of U.S. Highway 160, crossing Colorado's Continental Divide, a real mountain pass well known among truckers for its steep grades and sharp turns, giving the comedic story a foundation in an actual, widely recognized geographic landmark rather than a purely fictional setting. Number 9, Rubber Biscuit by the Blues Brothers. Released in 1978 on the live album Briefcase Full of Blues, this song was a cover of a little-known 1956 doo-wop track originally recorded by a New York group called The Chips, led by singer Charles Johnson. John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, performing as their Blues Brothers characters Jake and Elwood, built much of their live show around obscure soul and R&B covers, and this song, filled almost entirely with nonsense syllables rather than actual lyrics, became one of their most beloved performances. Released as a single in early 1979, the recording reached number 37 on the Billboard Hot 100, a genuinely surprising chart placement for a song built on what amounted to comedic scat singing rather than any conventional lyrical content. The backing band featured Donald Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper of Booker T and the MGs, giving the comedic performance a level of authentic musicianship rarely found behind similar novelty material. The original Chips version had never charted at all, remaining a regional East Coast favorite for over 2 decades before Belushi and Aykroyd introduced it to a massive national television audience through Saturday Night Live. Decades later, the song remains a favorite example of how genuine musical talent could elevate even the silliest source material into something genuinely enjoyable to listen to. Aykroyd handled the lead vocal on this particular track, channeling a deliberately exaggerated rhythmic style of nonsense scatting that required considerable vocal control, despite sounding completely improvised to casual listeners. The song had originally been written by Chips lead singer Charles Johnson, while working as an intern at a school for troubled teenagers, reportedly developed first as a rhythmic marching cadence long before it ever became a recorded song at all. The Chips themselves never achieved any chart success with the original 1956 version, remaining a relatively obscure East Coast doo-wop act that broke up within a year of the song's release, meaning it took more than 2 decades and an entirely different set of performers before the song finally reached a truly national audience. Number 8. Rubber Ducky by Ernie.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
Released in 1970, this song was written by Jeff Moss for Sesame Street and performed by Jim Henson in character as Ernie, the Muppet who famously loved his bath time rubber duck. It debuted on the show in February of that year and was released as a single shortly afterward, reaching number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100, a remarkable achievement for a children's television song, competing directly against mainstream pop and rock singles. The recording featured a genuine squeaky rubber duck sound effect, made by the song's writer Jeff Moss, himself squeezing an actual toy duck during the session. It also received a Grammy Award nomination for Best Recording for Children, ultimately losing to another Sesame Street release that included the same song as part of a larger collection. Henson's warm, playful vocal performance, combined with the song's simple, catchy melody, helped it cross over into genuine mainstream popularity well beyond its intended preschool audience.
Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you.
Decades later, it remains one of the most beloved and most covered songs to come out of Sesame Street's entire history, still instantly recognizable to generations of listeners who first heard it as small children. The song has since been translated into numerous other languages for international versions of Sesame Street, including a Spanish-language rendition performed by Henson himself under the title El Patito, a few years after the original became a hit. Songwriter Jeff Moss went on to write dozens of other memorable Sesame Street songs throughout his career, but this remains by far the most commercially successful and widely recognized piece of music to ever come out of the show's decades-long history. The recording's chart success was notable enough that it remains to this day one of only 2 songs performed by a Muppet character to ever reach the Billboard Hot 100 at all, a distinction later shared by Henson's performance of Rainbow Connection as Kermit the Frog nearly a decade afterward. The song's success also demonstrated something genuinely significant about early Sesame Street's approach to music, proving that a children's program aimed primarily at preschool education could still produce content catchy and well-crafted enough to compete directly against professional pop songwriting on national radio charts, a genuine crossover achievement that few educational programs before or since have ever matched.
Rubber ducky, you're the one.
Number 7. King Tut by Steve Martin.
Buried with the donkey.
Released in 1978, this song was written by comedian Steve Martin, who has said in later interviews that he composed the entire piece in under 15 minutes while sitting in his car, inspired by the massive popularity of the Traveling Treasures of Tutankhamun Museum exhibit touring American cities at the time. Martin first performed the song live on Saturday Night Live in April 1978, backed by a group of musicians credited as the Toot Uncommons, who were actually members of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, performing under a joke name. The elaborate television performance featuring dancers in Egyptian costume and a golden sarcophagus prop was reportedly the most expensive single sketch the show had produced up to that point. The song was released as a single shortly afterward and climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, eventually selling more than 1 million copies and earning a gold record. It also helped Martin's accompanying comedy album, A Wild and Crazy Guy, reach number 2 on the Billboard 200 album chart, further cementing his transition from stand-up comedian into a genuine multimedia entertainment phenomenon during the late 1970s. Martin has said that he never expected the bit to become an actual chart hit, viewing it as a one-time television sketch rather than something meant for serious commercial release. The performance also featured saxophonist Lou Marini, who would soon become well known for his own work with the Blues Brothers, delivering a memorable solo while dramatically emerging from a golden sarcophagus prop on stage in front of the studio audience. The traveling exhibit that inspired the song's subject matter drew an estimated 8 million visitors across the 7 American cities it toured between 1976 and 1979, meaning Martin's parody arrived at the exact peak of what became known at the time as genuine Tutmania sweeping the country. Within 11 days of hitting its chart peak, the single was certified gold for selling 500,000 copies, an unusually rapid pace for a comedy record built entirely around a museum exhibit rather than any conventional pop songwriting subject.
Buried with the donkey.
Number 6. Basketball Jones by Cheech and Chong. Released in 1973 as part of the album Los Cochinos, this song was a comedic parody of the recent hit Love Jones by the group Brighter Side of Darkness, reworked by Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong into a falsetto-sung story about a boy obsessed with basketball named Tyrone Shoelaces. The recording featured a genuinely remarkable lineup of guest musicians, including former Beatle George Harrison on lead guitar, songwriter Carole King on electric piano, and Billy Preston on organ, all of whom happened to be recording in a neighboring studio when producer Lou Adler invited them to join the session on the spot. Vocalist Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas and the group The Blossoms provided backing vocals credited playfully as the cheerleaders on the finished track. Released as a single, the song reached number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, notably climbing higher on the chart than the original song it was parodying. The unlikely combination of major recording stars contributing to what was essentially a comedy bit remains one of the more surprising behind-the-scenes stories in 1970s music, a genuine studio jam session that happened almost entirely by chance. Chong later recalled that the entire collaboration came together spontaneously after producer Lou Adler overheard the song playing next door, and simply walked over to see if Harrison wanted to join in. With the rest of the star-studded lineup falling into place, once word spread through the studio that a genuine celebrity jam session was underway. Marin performed the entire lead vocal in an exaggerated falsetto voice, playing the character of a young boy so consumed by his love of basketball that virtually nothing else in his life seemed to matter to him at all. The idea for the song reportedly originated during a car ride with actor Jack Nicholson, who was driving Marin and Chong to a Los Angeles Lakers game at the time, with the duo joking about turning the moment's frantic energy into a comedic song once they arrived safely at the arena. Chong has said the entire recording session felt like a genuine celebration among friends rather than a formal studio production, with musicians drifting in and out of the room throughout the day as word spread about the impromptu collaboration taking shape. Number 5. Uneasy Rider by the Charlie Daniels Band.
I was taking a trip out to L.A. Too little long in my Chevrolet. I was token.
Released in June 1973 from the album Honey in the Rock, this song was written and performed by Charlie Daniels, who delivered the entire track as a spoken-word story set over a steady guitar melody rather than conventional singing. The song follows a long-haired hippie character whose car breaks down in the rural South, forcing him into a bar full of people he initially fears will be hostile toward him, only for the situation to take several unexpected comedic turns. It became Daniels' first entry on the Billboard Hot 100, climbing to number 9 that August and establishing the talking blues storytelling style he would return to throughout the rest of his career, most famously years later with The Devil Went Down to Georgia. Daniels wrote the song's more antagonistic characters, partly based on real people and situations he had encountered, though the overall story itself was fictional. The recording's loose, humorous structure and vivid character sketches made it stand out from more straightforward country and rock singles dominating radio at the time. Decades later, it remains a clear example of how effectively a well-told comedic story could translate into genuine mainstream chart success without following any conventional song structure at all. Daniels has explained in interviews that the song was inspired partly by his own experiences touring through unfamiliar small towns during his years as a working musician, drawing on a genuine sense of uncertainty that came with being an outsider in an unfamiliar place. The album containing the song, originally titled Honey in the Rock, was later reissued under the title Uneasy Rider, once the single's massive popularity made clear which track audiences actually associated with the record. The song's spoken-word delivery style became something of a signature approach for Daniels throughout the rest of his career, one he would return to repeatedly whenever he wanted to tell a complete, self-contained comedic story rather than rely on a conventional verse and chorus structure. The song's success also marked an important turning point for Daniels personally, arriving after years spent working primarily as a session musician and producer for other artists, rather than as a recording star in his own right.
I was taking a trip out to L.A. Too little long in my Chevrolet. I was token.
Number 4. Junk Food Junkie by Larry Gross.
You know I love that organic cooking. I always ask for more.
Released in 1975 and reaching its chart peak the following spring, this song was written and performed by Larry Gross, telling the comedic story of a man who publicly presents himself as a devoted health food enthusiast while secretly indulging in junk food after dark. It reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1976, becoming the only entry Gross ever placed on the chart despite a long career as a songwriter, radio host, and children's music performer. The recording was made live at McCabe's Guitar Shop in Santa Monica, California, giving the track an intimate, informal feel that suited its lighthearted subject matter. Its popularity coincided directly with a genuine surge in health food culture across the United States during the mid-1970s, making its satire of dietary hypocrisy feel especially relevant to listeners at the time. The song's success even led to a memorable television performance alongside Mackenzie Phillips and the Jacksons on their 1976 variety show. Gross went on to a long and respected career hosting the national public radio program Mountain Stage for nearly 4 decades, though this one comedic novelty hit remains what most casual listeners still remember him for. Gross has said in interviews that he wrote the song after noticing how many people around him during the mid-1970s health craze seemed to publicly perform a level of dietary discipline that didn't always match their actual private habits. The song's success led to appearances on major television programs including The Tonight Show and American Bandstand, giving Gross a brief but genuine taste of national celebrity before he shifted his career toward radio broadcasting and children's music production for the remainder of his working life. The recording itself was captured live at a small guitar shop rather than a traditional studio, giving the track an informal, almost documentary quality that matched its down-to-earth, conversational sense of humor about a subject nearly everyone listening could relate to on some level. Gross has said audiences at his live shows would often shout out their own favorite hidden junk food indulgences during performances, turning the song into something of an interactive, communal joke shared between the singer and his crowd, rather than a one-directional piece of comedy.
You know I love that organic cooking. I always ask for more.
Number 3, the cover of Rolling Stone by Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show.
On the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Released in late 1972, this song was written by celebrated poet and children's author Shel Silverstein, who had already built a reputation writing songs for artists, including Johnny Cash, before turning his attention to this comedic reflection on the desperate desire for rock stardom. Performed by the New Jersey band Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, the song reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1973, becoming the group's signature hit and one of the most memorable self-aware songs about fame ever recorded. In a genuinely remarkable turn of events, the band actually did appear on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine in March 1973, though not through a traditional photo shoot, instead being featured as a caricature illustration rather than an actual photograph. The BBC in Britain initially refused to play the song, objecting to what it considered advertising for a commercial publication, prompting UK publicists to promote it as the first band single of that year. Silverstein's sharp, self-aware lyrics about chasing fame for its own sake gave the song a lasting relevance well beyond its original novelty framing, and it remains one of the most quoted songs about the music industry's own absurdities ever released. Silverstein reportedly wrote the song after spending considerable time around working musicians and observing firsthand just how much status and validation the magazine's cover held within the industry at the time. Band member Dennis LaCorriera later explained that despite the group having several other charting singles throughout the decade, this particular song remained the one audiences most consistently requested at live shows for the rest of their touring career, its self-deprecating humor about fame proving just as relatable decades later as it had been in the early 1970s. Silverstein's broader songwriting catalog included work for artists across nearly every genre, from country legends to children's records, making this comedic look at rock stardom just one small piece of an extraordinarily varied creative career.
On the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Number 2, Mr. Jaws by Dickie Goodman. Released in September of 1975, this song was created by Dickie Goodman, a pioneer of the break-in novelty recording format, in which comedic interview questions are answered, using short sampled clips from popular songs of the moment rather than original dialogue. Capitalizing directly on the massive success of the summer's blockbuster film Jaws, Goodman structured the track as a mock news interview with the shark itself, along with the film's main human characters, using song snippets from hits like Rhinestone Cowboy and Love Will Keep Us Together as their comedic responses. The single reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 that October, landing just behind David Bowie's Fame on the chart that same week, and topped the Cashbox magazine singles chart entirely. Goodman had been creating break-in records using this same technique since 1956, and this recording helped him eventually earn a Guinness World Record for the most Billboard chart entries in the novelty and comedy category. The song also won a Juno Award in Canada for Best-Selling International Single the following year, demonstrating just how far its clever, sample-based humor traveled beyond the United States. Goodman recorded the track at Sears Sound in New York City, carefully selecting each song snippet to function as a punchline, answering his mock interview questions, a painstaking editing process that required far more technical precision than the finished product's silly tone might suggest. Later pressings of the single reportedly replaced some of the original sampled clips with newly recorded sound-alike performances. Once the record's commercial success raised concerns about music licensing, a detail that reflected just how quickly Goodman's novel sampling technique was outpacing the industry's usual rules around the reuse of other artists' recordings. Goodman had actually pioneered this entire break-in recording style back in 1956, meaning Mr. Jaws represented nearly 2 decades of refinement of a comedic format he had essentially invented himself. Long before modern sampling became a defining feature of popular music production, the record's cultural footprint proved lasting enough that it still receives regular airplay decades later on radio programs built around Jaws anniversaries and 1970s nostalgia specials, a rare longevity for a novelty single tied so specifically to a single summer's movie release. Number 1. Star Wars Theme / Cantina Band by Miko. Released in the summer of 1977, this song was created by producer and arranger Miko Monardo, who reworked composer John Williams' iconic Star Wars film score into a full disco arrangement almost immediately after seeing the movie in theaters. Working with fellow producers Harold Wheeler and Tony Bongiovi, Miko completed the entire album in roughly 3 weeks, combining the film's main theme with the memorable Cantina Band tune from the movie's famous alien bar scene. The single reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on October 1st, 1977, holding the top spot for 2 weeks and actually outperforming John Williams' own original orchestral version of the same theme, which peaked at number 10. The accompanying album, Star Wars and Other Galactic Funk, sold over 1 million copies, remarkably outselling the film's actual official soundtrack release during that same period. Miko went on to apply the same disco reworking formula to several other major film scores over the following years, including The Wizard of Oz and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, though none matched the massive, unexpected success of this original Star Wars disco treatment. Miko had previously worked as a session musician and arranger, including production work on Gloria Gaynor's earlier hit Never Can Say Goodbye, experience that gave him the technical background needed to quickly translate a sweeping orchestral film score into a genuinely danceable disco arrangement. The success of the record was significant enough to help fund the construction of Power Station Studios in New York, an influential recording facility that would go on to host sessions for numerous major artists throughout the years that followed. Even John Williams' own competing orchestral version of the same theme benefited from the surrounding cultural moment, though it was Miko's disco reimagining that ultimately claimed the top chart position that October. Miko went on to score additional chart success with a disco version of the theme from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, released later that same year, showing that the formula he had stumbled onto with Star Wars could be repeated, even if none of his later film score reworkings ever came close to matching this first massively popular disco treatment. The cover art for both the single and the album, depicting 2 astronauts dancing together, was reportedly Miko's own idea, adding one more deliberately campy touch to a project that fully embraced its own novelty rather than trying to disguise it. From a talking shark to a disco-fied Star Wars theme, these 10 comedy records prove that a genuinely funny idea, executed with real musical craft, could climb all the way to the top of the charts. Whether it was a Muppet singing about a bath toy or a Beatles showing up to jam on a stoner comedy record, these songs shared one thing in common: real musicians treating a joke seriously enough to make it genuinely great. If these silly classics brought back some great memories, hit that like button and subscribe, for more deep dives into music history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.